Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Basketball Conference, the ACC Football Podcast. My name's Joey Weaver. He's Mike McDaniel. Mike, ACC Championship game week. How you doing? You ready to talk about some game?
Ready to talk about some game. Ready to spit some game.
We got game. We got news. We got a lot of stuff going on. It's been a fun week so far.
I cannot wait for a particular segment later in the show. Mike looks cold. This is from Will Secor. Mike looks cold. I've been cold all day. I live in the DC metro area. It's decided to feel like Alaska out, so I'm freezing.
Whoa. Is that still considered the metro area?
People commute to DC from here, so yes.
They're stupid.
Anyway, how long does it take to drive to the White House from where you live?
2 hours.
No.
I was going to say that's stretching the metro area.
No. Not 2 hours. What with traffic? Yes. With traffic, yes.
Without traffic, an hour and 45 minutes?
No. I'm really not that far. I'm
gonna
right
Google
off.
It. I'm Googling it.
Yeah, do it. Do it beginning right now.
Mike is really close to doxing himself over here. So
Yeah.
Mike, we are live, youtube.com/@the-ACC Football Podcast. It is a few minutes before 11 o'clock on the East Coast, Thursday night, December the 5th. We got the ACC title game to talk about. We've got a new coach. Well, we're going to have a new coach at some point at North Carolina. We got to talk about that. We got some other assistant movement. We've got some potential recruiting stuff. Maybe we'll talk about that tonight. Maybe not. Producer Scott has charged us with getting done with this show in under an hour, so we made sure to spend 2 minutes nearly doxing you. Felt like that was an important use of time.
What was total time, Scott? What was time there? What was the...
I was wrong. It's an hour and 20, but it's still
that's
a little
what
bit.
I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought. I was going to say hour 25, so that'd even be what I thought. Devin Hamilton, no changes at UVA.
Edge of the metro area. Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that because, we got to hit that for sure. As mentioned, we are live, youtube.com/@the-ACC Football Podcast. Got some people here in the chat with us, already having a good time. Appreciate the people joining us. Please hit that subscribe button if you have not already. We really appreciate the people who have done that. We are aiming for 550 subscribers by the end of the season, by the national title game, or, end of bowl season, whenever we get there. We are currently at 523. We are 27 subscribers away from our end of season goal. Really appreciate the people helping us with that. As mentioned, if you have not done that already, please do so. Please hit the like button if you're with us tonight. Hit the bell icon on YouTube. You can find out when we're going to go live next time. We would appreciate that. A lot of stuff. So appreciate the people helping us out. Mike, anything else before we get into a Rhoback Lookback at Week 14?
Nothing else.
Let's do it. Rhoback Lookback Week 14. As a reminder, use promo code GOACC20 for 20% off your first order at Rhoback.com. It is time for the holidays. You need something from Rhoback.com for somebody in your life. They have all sorts of great things for men, women, and children. Athleisure, polos, shorts, T-shirts, hoodies, vests, anything. You want to look good anywhere you're at, go get something from Rhoback.com. Once again, use promo code GOACC20 for 20% off your first order. Mike, did you have anything specifically from Week 14 that you wanted to hit on and touch on before we move forward?
We spent about 2 hours on that podcast recapping the week that was. The one thing that we kind of glossed over, we recapped the game for about 4 minutes, was how impressive Louisville looked against Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to go back and watch a little bit of that game and talk about exercising some demons. Mm-hmm. My God. I didn't really get a chance to get a lot of good eyes on that game, and I went back and took a look at it, and Kentucky's got several contributors now in the portal, including a very good wide receiver in Barry and Brown, and they're starting tight ends in the portal as well. They were probably going into the portal regardless of what happened in this game. I like to think it's because they lost 41-14 to Louisville because it's funnier that way. But this was a beatdown. Really, really impressive from Louisville. And it was start to finish, and it was in the running game, and Tyler Shuck didn't really have to do a whole lot of anything in this game. It was just a bludgeoning at the line of scrimmage from Louisville, and it was never competitive. And just seeing how Kentucky ended up kind of rolling over in this game was pretty impressive, considering the history between these two teams and what Kentucky has done to Louisville in the past. So just wanted to point that out. That was even more impressive than the final score indicated, I thought.
Yeah. Well, and I forget how much we hit on it in the recap, but Louisville's defense especially, I mean, they had Cutter Boley seeing ghosts out there, and he just completely in a blender, 6 for 15 for 48 yards and 2 picks. I mean, he looked like a freshman backup in this game, and in the most insulting way I can say that. Like, he did not look like he belonged on the field in this game. And as you mentioned, I mean, just exercising some demons for a Louisville team that had lost 5 in a row in that series, that's got to feel really, really good. And not only to do that, but to do it all on the ground. I mean, Louisville, for as much as you expect a Jeff Brom offense to be more than 50% passing, I mean, it was, let's see, 18 out of 79 plays passing here. I mean, this was mostly running the ball and running the hell out of it, and really kind of imposing their will and dominating. And just that's got to feel incredibly good.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we just totally miscalculated it on the podcast. I mean, we should have just gone with our gut. Well, I should have in particular. I went into it thinking I was going to pick Louisville, and then I just simply didn't. I was like, they never beat Kentucky. I mean, this version of Kentucky this year is really, really bad. Real bad. And they were starting a freshman. I should have known better. Yeah.
As a Louisville fan myself, I don't apologize for that, because this is not the first or the second time that we've previewed this particular game where Louisville clearly had the better team and was favored. And they have found ways to lose this game several times, and not even like lose close, like to get blown out by an inferior Kentucky team. And so I think, honestly, I am surprised that they won this game in a blowout, honestly.
Key difference, those were decent, like, bowl level Kentucky teams.
Mm-hmm.
This one was not.
Yeah.
Was not. That's the key difference. Like, yes, agree. Since we've been doing this podcast, Louisville's had teams that are clearly better than Kentucky, but Kentucky has always been a bowl team when we've previewed this game. This is bad Kentucky.
Yeah.
That's the difference this year, this time around anyway.
It almost seems like Mark Stoops basically leaving for Texas A&M and then getting that rug pulled out from under him might have resulted in a hole in the side of the ship that they're now taking on water at that program.
Yeah. That's why that's why when you get that far down the path, you almost have to go.
Yeah.
You know,
seems like Justin Fuente probably should have taken that Baylor job a couple years earlier, shouldn't he?
God, I don't want to talk about this. Yes. Yes. Agree.
Something else that I felt like we kind of glossed over that I think is important for context. We talked about the end of the South Carolina Clemson game, and we mentioned that Lenore Sellers scored a pretty crazy rushing touchdown with about a minute left. We mentioned that Clemson threw an interception to end the game. What we did not mention was that was at the tail end of an 8-play, 57-yard drive. Clemson got down into the red zone. Like, clearly within field goal range, had a chance to extend the game, and it's on second down that Cade Klubnik was intercepted. And so I felt like that's an important piece of contextual information to add, is that you were that close to pushing this at least to overtime and maybe having a chance to win, and made that mistake in that moment. And that is tough for Clemson and for Cade Klubnik.
Yeah. I mean, they were at the 18-yard line on a second down play. Yeah, it's real tough. I mean, you had a layup field goal that would have sent it to overtime, but you were threatening to win and you had time to do it. So,
yep,
real tough
for sure. Mike, anything else on week 14?
Want to talk about Georgia Tech? You good?
I really felt like we could have probably expanded on that game a little bit more. So
32 minutes. Yeah.
No, God, please, no.
32 minutes wasn't enough.
It wouldn't have been, but I don't want to make Will Secor go drink on a Thursday. So we'll move on.
I did that just for the comment section.
There you go.
I'm glad I did. Yep.
Last thing I do want to hit on from week 14, Mike, is something that I don't know that has ever happened before. This podcast shot the moon on locks for the week.
We did.
I went 2-0. You went 3-0. Scott went 1-0. We are combined 6-0 on the locks in week 14. Both of us, Mike, you and I both had Florida minus 14.5 against Florida State. That came in. I had South Carolina plus 2.5 against Clemson. You had Duke minus 4 against Wake Forest.
That really came in.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, never in doubt. Virginia Tech minus the 7 against Virginia. I don't know why I didn't jump on that with you. And then Scott had NC State plus the 3.5. Also never in doubt.
I am the smartest man alive.
Bang.
That's right. That's right. Incredible. 6-0 for you boys. So hopefully you followed all of us last week, and we made you some good money in time for the holidays.
Doesn't
leaves us
happen ever.
Yeah. Well, that gives me now an exactly 500 record on the year, which is going to technically lose you money at any sports book. Mike 19-17, Scott 5-2-1 on the producer's pick of the week, and our guy Cam still 2-1 after his week with us. Really should have invited Cam on the recap to get his thoughts.
I was gonna say hopefully he didn't bet on Miami against Syracuse like I did twice. I team total and the cover.
Has he been active online? Do we need to get a Wi-Fi check on Cam?
Oh, he's been active online. He's angry about Miami's college football playoff situation, which we could talk about later if you guys want. But he's not as angry as he could be because he said all you had to do was beat Syracuse, which he's right. All you had to do was beat Syracuse. You'd be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
Now you have no good wins, and you're going up against Alabama. Best of luck.
Whoops.
Best of luck.
Yeah. Miami all the way out, as Volusia's Orange notes. Also 50 degrees in Shanghai today. I always forget that Volusia's Orange is watching us from across the Pacific Pond.
Yes, very nice.
Shout out to Volusia's Orange for joining us from way across the world. Appreciate that.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, the good and the bad and the ugly, by the way. That's also a look back at week 14. Excellent. Excellent work by Cam as always. Highly recommend.
It was every bit as good as I could have hoped it was.
Mm-hmm.
Or
yeah,
hoped
for
it would
sure.
be. Yeah.
Y'all want to talk about the ACC Championship game?
I was not expecting SMU and backdoor Clemson.
Yeah, that was not how I saw this season ending up. That's for sure.
Yep.
Let's get into it. One last game to preview of the regular semi-postseason thing before we figure out what we're doing for bowl season. It is Saturday, December the 7th, 8 o'clock on ABC from Charlotte, North Carolina, Bank of America Stadium. It's the ACC Championship game, Mike. It's the number 8 SMU Mustangs taking on the number 17 Clemson Tigers. SMU, a 2-point favorite in this game, totals 55.5. I note that SMU is a 2-point favorite. That's after Clemson opened a 2-point favorite. This pretty quickly swung the other way. Like within hours, basically, it went from Clemson -2 to Clemson +2 here. So just wanted to note that. First half totals 26.5. First half spread SMU -0.5. Is there anything that sticks out to you here in this matchup, Mike? I mean, again, this is, I think, pretty definitively the most difficult game that SMU has played all year. Is that a fair statement?
Clemson's probably the best team that I would say. Clemson's probably the best team SMU has played.
Is it Clemson?
Maybe that BYU game in September.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson went toe-to-toe with Pitt. Clemson lost to Louisville, and BYU is also kind of up there in the rankings. So there's some potentially comparable opponents quality-wise in play here.
Yeah, here's the thing though, like I mean, SMU went on the road to Louisville, won that game. They lose to BYU by 3 in September, or else we're talking about SMU as like probably a bye team potentially in the playoff, right? And
yeah,
I'm not 100% sure. I think they'd have to go and win this game convincingly. I think to like 1,000% lock up a bye. I think they would probably get one. I think the ACC is probably going to get one of those top four seeds, right? Like the Big 12. I mean, it kind of depends on what you think of Arizona State, but they're so far down the rankings at this point. I think SMU probably locks up a bye. But I think SMU would have been like a top 3 or 4 team in the rankings if they hadn't lost that BYU game, obviously. Coming into this game undefeated, really wouldn't have to worry about what happens here. I think the committee set it up so that if SMU loses this game by a couple touchdowns to Clemson, the committee has the option of moving Alabama into the field, which I would absolutely hate. With the way that SMU has looked, it's kind of the same argument I had for Indiana, how they've looked against the opponents on their schedule all year long. Your worst loss is to BYU. Your worst and only loss is to BYU by 3. Everybody else you've kind of stepped on, with the exception of Duke that you beat by a point on the road, right? You've
like
looked
6
pretty
missed
good.
field goals or 6 turnovers, and yeah,
Weird game. You got very fortunate there, but I mean everybody else you've kind of gotten separation. So I think they've looked pretty good. We got in the middle part of the schedule, especially after that Duke game, and I think for a couple of weeks we were like, all right, like let's see if SMU is as good as we think they are, and they proved down the stretch of the season that yeah, they escaped the Duke game. Everybody has a bad game. They escaped it with a win. And then they just went on to beat the piss out of Pitt, BC, UVA, and Cal. They looked good very good in all of those games. And they come in, they're very hot. They're playing good football. Their defense has been very good. I think this is a tough game for Clemson now. And I went into this midway through the year thinking, man, if it's going to be a Clemson SMU title game, I'm feeling really good about Clemson. I don't feel that way anymore, even though I thought Clemson played pretty well and was the better team against South Carolina for like 3 quarters last Saturday. So I think this sets up decently well for SMU as far as like first half spreads and team totals and stuff like that. This is, I think, very game script dependent. I think Clemson, if they jump ahead early here, SMU hasn't really been in a position a ton this year where they've had to play from behind. And I'm curious how that looks against a very good Clemson defense. Like, this Clemson program has been comfortable with playing from ahead, staying ahead in a lot of these games they've played this year. Does SMU have it in them to get into a game where they don't control things and they got to like claw their way back in? That's where I think we're going to learn a lot about SMU. And I think that's really going to dictate whether or not, even if SMU loses this game, whether or not they're actually going to end up still in the college football playoff or not.
Yeah.
So, yeah, first half total of 26.5. No, thank you. First half SMU minus half a point. No, thank you. This feels like a coin flip game coming into it. Like, this could be one of the better games of the weekend, I think.
Really could be. I've been thinking about this game all week. I've been thinking about this game all day, and I'm still sitting here like trying to formulate. I am not. This is not a bit. Honestly, I am still trying to figure out what I think of SMU. Honestly. And I'm trying to rectify what the results and what the numbers tell me with what my eyes tell me.
If
truthfully.
That's the case, we cannot complain if they get bumped out of the college football playoff on Sunday. We can't complain about it.
Different discussion. Want to have it, we'll get to that. Don't want to have it at this very moment. Give me 10 minutes and we'll get there. And part of what I've thought about somewhat to that extent, Mike, is I still struggle with the idea that my eyes telling me that SMU is a top 10 team. The problem with that is I'm starting to think that in college football this year, we don't have 10 top 10 teams. Like, we've got like 6 or 7, and then we got a whole bunch of, shrug your shoulders. Like, they could be pretty good some weeks. They're not that good other weeks. Like, it happens. And there is definitely something to win your clunkers, right? Like, they should have lost to Duke, and they didn't. And you should get credit for that. And They didn't totally step on Boston College's throats. Again, they scored with like 15 seconds to make that a 10-point game instead of a 3-point game that it was at home. And like, so we're like really hanging our hats on the Louisville win. Louisville's like a fringe top 25 team. I struggle with it. I struggle with it. They beat Pitt. Pitt hadn't won since then. Like it's kind of where we're at with college football this year of like, how many teams that are in the playoff field right now are we looking at saying like, well, who the hell have they played? People are saying Texas going into last week's game against A&M, if they had lost that game, they don't have any decent wins. They're not in the field, like Penn State. Who's Penn State beaten? Right? Like basically nobody. And so like this is happening in other and this is just what happens with these mega conferences that you don't have any sort of structured way of doing this. So that's where I'm struggling. I will say that I look at this the Pitt game, and the reason that sticks out to me, that one and maybe the Duke game, are those the best defenses that SMU has seen? Maybe Cal? I don't know. What I'm getting at here is that I think there's a decent shot that this Clemson defense is probably the best one that SMU has seen, other than maybe BYU. But
yeah,
I think this Clemson defense presents problems for SMU that other defenses have not. And I don't think that you're going to overrun Clemson's defense in the way that you have been able to overrun a lot of the other defenses on your schedule.
Yeah.
That's something that sticks out to me. Then again, I think of Clemson, and can Clemson move the ball, finish drives, and score with what has been a pretty high-powered, like, do I think they're going to shut out SMU? No. Do I think they can keep SMU inside of 30? Maybe. But if SMU gets to 27 points, do I think that Clemson can definitely score 27 on SMU's defense? I'm not so sure. So that's this is where it's like I'm struggling so much for context with this SMU team of like, what do I think is going to happen here? And Clemson's been a little bit of an EKG team too, of kind of up and down and up and down. And they've struggled pretty badly on offense against some of the best defenses they've played. And so I think that's probably where I put this is I think if anything, I'm not giving SMU's defense enough credit. And if that's the case and SMU's defense is actually legit pretty good, I think Clemson's going to have problems scoring in this game. And that's probably where I'm going to hang my hat on my ultimate handicap here.
Yeah. The thing that I'm most sure about here is that Clemson's offense can score on bad defenses. SMU's not a bad defense. And Clemson hasn't proven that they can consistently score on good defenses, right? And I don't think SMU has the same level of defense, especially up front, for example, that South Carolina has, that Clemson just faced. I don't think SMU's defensive front is nearly as good as South Carolina's, but I think SMU has a pretty good defense overall. I think that SMU's defense could pose similar problems that South Carolina did. I think the reason why that ended up being a dogfight last weekend is because what we outlined on that preview kind of played out. Clemson had a lot of trouble blocking South Carolina's defensive line. That Clemson got some guys back from injury up front, but they were still really struggling to block a really impressive South Carolina defensive line. Now, I think that SMU's offense, regardless of the defenses they've played, SMU's offense is balanced enough to get into the 20s here against a good Clemson defense. I think they do a little bit more. South Carolina is a little bit more limited in the passing game with Lenora Sellers. It came along a bit better in the second half of the year, but SMU has been more consistent in the passing game than what Clemson just saw against South Carolina. The balance SMU has with Brashard Smith and Kevin Jennings, run and pass, I think will present Clemson with some problems here. And like you said, if SMU gets into the mid to high 20s, are we absolutely sure that Clemson can keep up with them? Vegas is kind of counting on it with the total and with where the spread's at. Game total 55.5. They're kind of counting on Clemson being right in this game if it's in the high 20s. I'm not saying they can't do it. It's just that I'm not sure. We haven't seen it enough against like good defenses this year. I think SMU has a good defense, and that's where I'm hanging my hat. I think SMU's got a good defense, good enough to hold Clemson down enough. I think SMU's offense is balanced enough, running and passing, to keep Clemson off balance here. I think SMU is going to a college football playoff. I think they're going to. I don't think they're going to have to worry about backing in. The story all week has been about Alabama, and we can talk about that in a few minutes. That's been the story all week. I don't think SMU is going to have to worry about it. I think they're going to beat Clemson. This is a good Clemson team. It's a good Clemson team. Could easily have come into this game 10-2 and been a lot better spot to make college football playoff. It's not 10-2. They lost to South Carolina. It is what it is. Clemson had a tough schedule down the stretch of the year. It is what it is. A better Clemson team, but I don't think it's playoff caliber, win a game or two. Clemson, like I thought it might have been early in the year. That Louisville loss, I think, told us a lot. And SMU won their clunker. Clemson didn't. And that's why SMU's in a better spot coming into this game, Clemson laid an egg at home against Louisville, and SMU laid an egg against Duke, and they figured out a way to win that game, right? So
yeah. Yep.
That's kind of where the differences in the records lie. They faced a pretty, I'd say a pretty similar schedule outside of Clemson, obviously playing Georgia in the opener. I think other than that, it's been a relatively even schedule. Like SMU early season non-con game against BYU, I think kind of holds the same amount of weight the way BYU was playing early in the year that Clemson playing South Carolina ended up holding late in the year, because BYU was looking like a very good team. They still ended up having a decent year, but it looked like a really good team in September when they played. And Clemson got South Carolina at a really bad time. South Carolina was hot, and Clemson could easily won that game last weekend. So,
yep.
SMU, I think, wins this game close. I'm going to take SMU to win and cover. I'm going to say something like 27-23. I think we're staying under the total. I don't trust Clemson's offense enough, and that's really what this boils down to here. I think SMU's defense gets enough stops. That's what I'm going with. I've been back and forth all week. That's what I'm picking.
SMU 28, Clemson 24. I'm with you. I think it's SMU and the under for me is the play here. I think a small number like this, just laying 2 points. I'm with you. I think Rhett Lashley, SMU's offense, is going to find a way to score a few points. And as we said, I think SMU's defense is good enough to cause Clemson's incomplete, inconsistent offense enough issues that I think the Ponies get it done. And that's me. Big SMU, the biggest fan of SMU on this podcast, frankly. I just want to make sure that I am calling that out, that I am picking SMU to win the ACC Championship game. So, yeah, give me the Ponies. Sully makes a great point. He was on SMU, but now he's not sure, hearing both of us take him. So that's important to note. I do think it's important to. I think it's lower scoring. I do. I do think that both of these defenses are going to have some success in this game. I just think that SMU's offense has more ways and has shown some more consistency. Although, again, this is arguably the best defense they will have faced. So we'll see how that goes in this particular case. We shall see. I don't think I'm going to lock anything up here. I don't have anything that I feel that strongly about. Scott, do you have thoughts on this game?
I have some thoughts, I guess. I think it's going to be a close game. The 2, I think it's appropriate. I think each of the teams are going to feel themselves out in the first half. If you want to be able to play this sound this game,
I know when that hotline bling.
first quarter under 12.5.
First quarter under.
First quarter under 12.5.
Good Lord. Call
That's the
hotline.
juice I'm looking at there for the first quarter. Just for the hotline. Mike might be back.
First quarter under 12.5.
Mike, you missed it, so I'll play it again. First quarter under 12.5.
I know when that hotline bling.
You're playing.
What
a
have they done to
first
my boy?
quarter- a first quarter total?
No, I'm saying if you wanted to play that song, that's
Oh,
what
I
you would
thought-
you
I
would
thought
bet.
I thought you were playing that.
No.
Oh,
Well, you know,
I mean, don't threaten Scott with a good time.
come Saturday night, things might change. But no,
my God.
the producer's pick of the week is
First quarter unders to feel
Clemson.
alive.
Clemson team total under 27.5. That's way too many points for this Clemson offense, in my opinion.
I'll be
So
I'll be back in 30 seconds.
okay,
Yeah.
bye, Mike.
Kid issues. I'll be back.
Yeah,
Okay,
as they do.
children.
Is that, Scott, when you say that's way too many points, do you think that Mike and I are overshooting it at 23 and 24 for Clemson in this game?
No, I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
I don't.
Right.
That's why I said under 27.5. I think they'll get to like 21 to 25 ish.
I heard way too many points, and I was like, oh, we thinking 17 or something? Are we staying well away from that number? But I like your approach here as well, because if I feel confident about anything, it's probably SMU's defense against Clemson's offense.
Yep.
And so I like the way that you're looking at that, and I agree with it. And I look forward to Clemson scoring like 45 in this game and just making us all look silly. But it's been that kind of year at times in this league. So I agree. I'm not gonna lock anything up. I just don't feel strongly enough about anything to put my 500 record in jeopardy here. I don't think so. Mike, is there anything that you're interested in locking up in this game? Because I'm not. I just don't feel that confident about what we're going to see one way or the other. I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out like what my favorite play is. And Scott, did you drop your pick?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
That's-
Clemson team total under 27.5. Yes.
That's a pretty good one.
I agree.
Like if I had to pick one gun to my head, yeah, that might be the one.
You sure you don't want that first quarter under?
No. God. So what's the total on SMU? It's got to be what, 29-ish?
I believe it was 1 point higher. Yeah, I think it was 28.5.
Yeah. I'm taking a look at FanDuel right now.
This is good podcasting.
Mm-hmm. What does BetUS say about this game? SP Plus
I know
has.
when that hotline bling.
Pet US's motto.
There you go. SMU has.
Clemson?
SP Plus has SMU by 5.5, so like 30 to 25 roughly.
SMU is a 1.5 point favorite in each quarter.
I saw on DK you could get a half. I saw the first quarter was a half point, but maybe that's different. Which at that point, why are you taking a half point if you're going to be tied? I guess, but whatever.
Yeah.
All right, I got one. I got a different line than what's showing on our Google Doc for the first half. SMU first half minus 1.5.
Got some good
Why?
CLV there, laying an extra point.
Lay an extra point. You get that minus 106. I wonder what the juice was on the minus half point. Slightly better.
Yeah.
No, I can't in good faith take anything here, to be honest with you. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing I like. I think my favorite bet is the one Scott put out there, the Clemson team total under. I just told you it was going to be 27-23. by virtue that would be game total under 2, obviously. But
Yeah.
I think that would be my favorite play. But I might, to be honest with you, I might be staying off of this game entirely.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I agree. I mean, again, I said 28-24, so I'm saying SMU covers by 2 points, and we get to 3.5 points away from the game total, right? Like that's, and with a week like this where there's just a few games, it's not surprising that Vegas might be just like completely on it. I mean, there's very little to divert the attention, so yeah, they're on it here, I think.
Have you looked at any of the other games?
Kind of poked at it, yeah. Want to hit those real quick while we're on games and then move on.
Just in terms of a lock.
Give me Oregon minus 3.5 against Penn State.
Yeah.
I don't think Penn State can move the ball on Oregon at all.
Lock it up.
Please.
Yeah, we're double barreling that.
Oh,
You better
sorry.
lock it up. You better lock it up.
Very good.
No, you lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
Please.
Another one I really like. Arizona State laying 2 against Iowa State. Matt Campbell is looking at the North Carolina job.
Okay, let's get to that in a minute.
Okay.
So I've got questions on that, but that's fair. I think I agree with you on that. I think Arizona State's offense is a little bit more dynamic than what Iowa State's running out there, and yeah, Arizona State, one of the surprise teams of the year. They've been sneaky, pretty good. So good on them.
I mean, they were picked last in Big 12, 10-2.
I don't want to touch the SEC championship game with a 10-foot pole. That's what I know.
Nope. This might be a second of the 3 times they play this year.
Yeah, no kidding. What I will say about that is that you saw Georgia win that game by 16, I think, in Austin, and even that involved a late score, I think, from Texas to make it look closer than it kind of was.
Yeah.
If you look back at how that game unfolded, I do think that margin was heavily game script situation. Like I think Georgia had one offensive touchdown on a drive of more than 40 yards, basically. Like they were they had a ridiculous field position edge between touchdowns and just having Texas pinned back on their own end of the field the whole night. And I don't know how repeatable that is necessarily. So just for what that's worth.
Yeah. I think Georgia could certainly beat Texas.
Oh yeah.
Again. I don't see it playing out like it did the first time.
Yeah.
Which and Vegas doesn't either. Vegas has Texas laying 2.5. So
right.
I am I'm staying off of that one, I think.
Pass.
I kind of like the over in the MAC championship game, 44.5.
Implied score
not
20,
a bad pick.
23-21 or something.
They're playing inside Ford Field. Tickets as low as $4. You guys want to go to Detroit and go to the MAC title game?
Pay more to get there, obviously.
How many beers would I have to buy in that stadium to match the amount of money I have to spend on a plane ticket to get there? Or the cheapest part of that whole trip would be going to the game, by a mile.
How many beers do you have to drink to have it feel like you're actually at the SEC Championship game?
Yeah, that would be fun. That'd be a good time. Detroit in Ohio or in December. Tough value prop on that.
I also have one more.
Mm-hmm.
It's Friday night.
I think I know where you're going.
I think I do too.
It may surprise you. Well, first of all, are you guys laying 5 with Tulane?
No.
Give me the home dog army in that game.
Okay,
With
that's
5.
fine. Okay, that's fine because I want to make sure that wasn't the pick. I have one. Give me UNLV.
plus the money, or plus the points.
Give me UNLV plus the points, potentially outright. Have you guys seen Boise State lately?
Hadn't been great.
It hadn't been great, and everybody's talking about, what's Boise State going to be seeded? Are they going to be, do they have a chance to host a game? All this stuff. No, UNLV's got a chance to beat Boise. And UNLV, if you remember the first time they played, they gave Boise State absolute hell. That was also a Friday night game, I believe. They had Boise State in hell. Ashton Genty ran for like 140 yards, but it took him like 35 carries. They really made it difficult on him. And
that was
UNLV
in Vegas. This is on the blue turf, for what it's worth.
Right. So you're going on the road here, but I think UNLV has been playing better. I haven't loved what I've seen out of Boise, particularly in the passing game lately. And I'm betting against Ashton Genty, which is quite the proposition. But I
mean, and Dennis mentions Genty's doesn't seem like he's 100% healthy. Yeah, because he's got like 400 carries or whatever it is and counting. So the human body isn't really made for that, unless you're Derrick Henry, I guess. But anyways,
was that the pick?
That's all I got.
What were you guys looking at?
On what?
Do you guys agree? You said, "Oh, I think I know where you're going with this." Do you guys
the
have
Army.
One?
I thought you were going to be on Army with me and Scott.
Oh no.
Army getting 5 at home against Tulane.
No, better you guys than me.
I see where your head's at, though. The last thing I'll mention, then we can move on. The talk of Boise is sputtering to the finish here, and they're going to lose in this game that they won before. Sounds awfully familiar. It kind of sounds like that Washington-Oregon game last year, right? On a Friday night that Washington won the first one, and then Washington kind of looked like hell, and then they went and they played in the conference championship game, and Washington beat them again. And I could see some parallels there, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Maybe.
Curious.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yep. Maybe.
Anyways. Good on all that?
Good on all that.
All right. Let's move on. These previews brought to you by Section103.com, the internet's premier place for all things wonderful Georgia Tech apparel. They got things for men, women, children, babies, something for the whole family, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies like this one I'm wearing right now. Super comfortable. Looks great. The official word marks, all the official Tech gold. They've got some NIL shirts. They've got things for more than just the football team. We're getting into basketball season. You want to get ready for baseball season. They got stuff there too. That Feliz Bobby Dodge shirt, I think it's still there. Might have sold out by now. And if not, you better hurry up and go get yours before they do sell out again, because they did last year. That's for sure. Very, very popular. Use promo code GOACC at checkout for 10% off your first order. Shout out to Steven and the gang. Appreciate their support. Apologize for not doing the read. I woke up Sunday or Monday morning, and I think the first thought that I had was we recorded for 2 hours and we didn't do the Section 103 read on the recap. So I texted you about that. But anyways, once again, promo code GOACC at checkout for 10% off your first order. Section103.com. We got breaking news on the podcast.
Former UVA coach Bronco Mendenhall is leaving New Mexico for Utah State.
Sure.
Why? I mean, Utah State's a better job, but why?
Is it?
Wait, so he was only there for a cup of coffee, right? That was just 1 year?
1 year.
I think it was 1 year.
Bronco just hates the East Coast.
Familiarity with Utah.
I was going to say, do you just like Utah maybe? Like
familiarity. Probably has to go home.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think of Utah. I mean, Utah State's been a bit of a mess for the better part of a decade now. So, and it seems like that's more than just, they've made the wrong football hires. It seems like there might be some wrong pieces in the administration there. So,
yeah,
we'll see if Bronco can overcome all of that.
I
didn't have him back in Charlottesville.
I won't want to be coaching New Mexico either.
Devin Hamilton didn't have him back in Charlottesville.
Yeah, I bet he would.
Oh, he sure would. Right there. There's the comment.
Oh, poor guy.
Let's talk real quick. I do want to hit on a couple of the coaching job things that have happened in the ACC. But before we do that, can we hit real quick on the college football playoff rankings positioning situation that the ACC finds itself in?
I suppose.
So just real quick, we got new rankings Tuesday night, and this is the final set of rankings, obviously, before the playoff is officially announced on Sunday. It seems like at this point, everything's basically settled. It's pretty clear like who's going to be in and who's not, with the little bit of an exception. Scott's starting the timer there. The one exception seems to be the ACC championship game situation. So as a reminder, if you win your conference championship game, you're one of the top 5 conference champions in the rankings. You are in the playoff. So whoever wins this game on Saturday will be a top 10 or a top 5 conference champion by rankings. Full stop. They will be in the playoff. They will almost certainly get a bye in the playoff unless someone from the Big 12 were to somehow jump either SMU or Clemson or whatever. What's interesting is the committee has been insistent that they do not want to punish teams for participating in their conference championship games. Right? And they want to reward that they made the conference championship game and that is a big deal to them. And then, and as they're announcing the rankings on Tuesday, and I'm going to paraphrase, nobody watches that show.
Nobody watches that. I've not watched 1 second of that this year. Have you? I've not watched a second of it. No.
I barely remember what night it's on, much less what time, channel, etc. Well, it's on ESPN.
We have kids.
Ward Manuel, who I think is the chairman of the committee, because again, I know these things really well. There's a lot of like interviewing that goes on every week. They announce these rankings, and that's a whole thing by itself. But one of the things that they asked him was if SMU were to lose the ACC championship game on Saturday, is there a chance that they could fall behind Alabama, which would then basically the question becomes is the ACC definitely a 1-bid league or could they be a 2-bid league? And he said, yeah, possibly. And I just can't help but think that is such a dangerous and harmful precedent to set, is that right now, SMU number 8, meaning if somebody made the point, what if everybody on the SMU roster all of a sudden just had COVID and we just can't play the game? And
Rhett Lashley made that point.
Yeah. Could be anybody, but yeah, Rhett Lashley himself. Why should we play this game at all? We would be in the playoff if we didn't.
Right.
Ridiculous. And I can't help but think, well, that's a 3-loss team. Why would they get in the playoff? Well, because they got the big script A on their helmet, and my son thinks it's the Braves playing when they see that game on TV. Like, that's the best reason they can come up with it, is that's Alabama. That's the Crimson Tide. And it's like the playoff committee, it sure seems like they're going to decide what they want to do and then figure out the logic that makes it make sense later. And that sucks. It's dangerous. It's harmful. And I hate it. And I will riot if SMU loses on Saturday and doesn't make the playoff. That would be 100% garbage.
Me too. And this would be different if SMU. This would be different for me a little bit if SMU was entering this game with 2 losses. They're entering this game with 1 loss.
Yeah.
If SMU entered this game with 2 losses, they were 10-2, lost conference title game. They were 10-3. Okay, yes, you played an extra game that Bama didn't play, and that's how you accumulate your 3rd loss. But then you start playing the game that I was playing with Miami, which is, what is your best win?
Mm-hmm.
And, you can talk about, Alabama, they got some good wins, right? They also lost to Vanderbilt and they lost to Oklahoma. And everybody's talking about how bad the Oklahoma loss is. And I look at SP+. So if you look at SP+, that Oklahoma loss actually isn't that bad. Like, should it have been, it looked bad on the field, but as far as what the quality of team that Oklahoma is, if you look at SP+, actually not that bad. And that's what I use That's one of my favorite things to look at as SP plus. Like, how bad is that Oklahoma team? Well, they're like a quarterback and offensive, not really a quarterback. They're like an offensive line short, really, this year, and a very good defense, right?
Yeah.
This would be different to me if SMU was 10-2 and they lost, and then we're starting to look at similar resumes, and Alabama's got the wins to offset the losses that SMU doesn't have. Then I'd be okay with it. That's why I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with Alabama being ahead of Miami, because I look at Miami, I'm like, who'd you beat at the end of the day? It's not, they don't have a lot of really good wins on the schedule, and
Yeah.
the one thing
I'm not complaining about the Miami thing. Like,
no. The one thing that the committee's been consistent with is they have given teams that have quality wins, they've given them leeway to lose a game or two, right? And a lot of people are like, SEC bias, SEC bias, SEC bias. I get it. But if you got a couple really good wins on the schedule, then you can lose a game or two and be okay. That's why Alabama is even in this conversation to begin with. With that said, if SMU loses on Saturday and it's competitive, I think that they should keep SMU in because of the precedent that it sets. But I am not naive, Joey. And we had a conversation about Florida State about a year ago, where Florida State went 13-0, did not look very impressive in the ACC title game because they were playing with a backup quarterback in Brock Glenn, and Jordan Travis broke his leg, and it obviously materially affected Florida State's chances of winning a national championship when he went down. We all acknowledge that. But they did what they had to do. They were the most deserving team for that number 4 spot last year, and they didn't get it because of the injuries and how competitive they would be moving forward. None of us thought that Florida State was going to get into the college football playoff semifinal and be competitive against any of the 3 teams in front of them. None of us saw that with Brock Glenn at quarterback. We all agreed with that. But they set that precedent last year where they were like, well, they're not the same team now, and didn't even give them a chance to go out and try to prove it. They would have gotten boat raced, but didn't give them a chance to go out and play that way because they went 13-0. Didn't give them a shot to do that, prove that. That was a dangerous precedent they broke last year, where they said, nope, it's actually 4 best teams that we think are the 4 best, not 4 most deserving. This would be bad. This would be a lot worse, actually, if you're deciding that, oh, an 11-1 team that lost their conference title game is out. They would have been in a better position had they not played in it, because then you're Indiana. You're 11-1, and you beat a bad schedule, and you lost 1 game against a good team, and you would have been in the bracket. You're the number 8 team in the college football playoff rankings. Don't even play the title game at that point if you're going to drop below a 3-loss Alabama. What they're wrestling with is that Greg Sankey issued kind of an ultimatum. This better work out for the SEC, is what he said before the year. Greg Sankey is ruining college athletics. Fuck that
just
guy.
go make your own tournament, Greg. Whatever.
I'm not a fan.
Leave us
I'm
alone.
not a fan. I'm just not a fan of that guy. Sorry, Scott. That's 53-10 if you want to believe that. Not a fan of that guy.
No.
Just, I think he's ruining college athletics. So I'm just not very high on him.
Agreed.
And that's why I think Alabama has a chance to jump SMU. I don't think they should, though.
Yeah. I do want to call out to SMU. First of all, one of 6 power conference teams with 1 loss or less in the regular season. 6, right? Like, that's should be clearly an at-large team at that point if we're not penalizing teams for losing their conference championship realistically. Number 2, one of the arguments that Ward Manuel made was, well, if you look at the top 25 teams, Alabama was 3-1 against top 25 teams. SMU's 0-1. Okay, 2 things here. Number 1, who ranks the top 25? That would be Ward Manuel and his committee. So Ward, that's garbage to begin with. That's a circular nonsense argument. Number 2, if you go look at the AP top 25, you know who's at number 27 and number 28? That'd be Louisville and Duke, both of whom SMU beat. So they're what, 2-1 against top 30 teams, but if we say top 25, well, they're 0-1. Which, again, garbage, ridiculous, circular logic. Just completely ridiculous. Yeah. Penn State, by the way, they're 11-1. They're number 3 in the country. They're clearly getting in the playoff. You know how many top 25 teams they've beaten? One. They beat Illinois. Number 21 Illinois is who they beat, and other than that, it's been a bunch of nothing. So, this is clearly just like devaluing the ACC by hook or by crook, and it's insulting and it's sickening, and it bothers me. And it's not going to be a problem when SMU beats Clemson on Saturday. So, like, who cares? But I'm getting mad about it now preemptively so that we can say that we were mad about it before and just build on that and be offended when it does happen.
Yeah, SMU should win so they don't have to worry about it. I would be upset for them. But also, we're arguing about the 12th team.
Yeah.
It's
last
expansion thing.
Last thing before we move on, because the timer said we have to. I do want to go back to this comment that was made 42 minutes ago in the stream from the John J. Belenovich Law Offices, LC. On Saturday, there's no way that SMU wins this game. Nothing against SMU. It's the ACC, and something stupid has to happen. And if you're just thinking about it from the standpoint of storylines and what are we going to be talking about next, we have watched this conference for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like that's the direction that we're headed, which is why we bring it up tonight. So anyways,
Yep.
It would
I'm
solve
good. I
a
don't
lot
know.
of these. I think they would solve a lot of these problems if they just didn't do the dumbass weekly show. Just do it at the end.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
time. Then you don't have this conversation.
All for
You notice we
TV.
never, like, if we're yelling about the NCAA like basketball tournament stuff, we're not yelling at Joe Lenardi every 3 days.
Because it's a
We yell at the-
prediction.
Yeah, we yell at the committee once, and then we move on and watch the tournament.
Yeah, we're mad until Thursday. You're mad from Sunday night until, well, really like Tuesday when the play-in games begin.
Yeah.
Right.
But
you're mad
ESPN
for
needs a
48
lead-in
hours.
show to Maction on Tuesday nights. So here we find ourselves in November and December.
So don't let anybody tell you that the college football playoff is not for television.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Woke Furby. I love the comment about ACC corruption came from a law office. Good point. Good point. Anything else on that, Mike?
Nope.
All right. Quickly, North Carolina is in the hunt right now for Mac Brown's replacement. And everything that I've read and seen, even before the firing announcement was made, this is a messy situation in Chapel Hill. And there's not a very clear direction that we're going here. Obviously, the firing was denied beforehand, and then it happened, and then he coached the bowl game, and then he went to the press conference griping, and then we're interviewing Bill Belichick, and what else has happened here? But Arthur Smith's name came up here somehow, and you said Matt Campbell has interviewed here, or there's interest?
There's interest. Yep.
I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, this is a weird search.
Mhm.
I think they would really like Sumrall.
Yeah.
I think that's who they actually want. This is just one man's opinion. I think they really want Sumrall. We're going to find out just how much they want him after Friday night when Tulane plays Army. I think that's when we're really going to find rubber's going to hit the road, and we're really going to find out what the interest is there. Sumrall's being linked to every big job. I am not aware of Sumrall interviewing yet because technically he can't. But
He's prepping his team for the conference title game.
yeah, but this stuff all happens behind the scenes, and I'm sure there's been contact. Would he be interested? And he's coming up for every big job, so just expect him to be a candidate. Matt Campbell is interested. I think Matt Campbell should have left Iowa State a while ago. He got them to 10-2 a little bit unexpectedly this year after a few down years. I think this is the cycle where you see Matt Campbell maybe try to make a jump.
Like,
Maybe
this
not
is
for a
it, yeah.
job. I think this is it. Maybe not for a job that makes a lot of sense, but I think this might be the time he actually leaves Iowa State. I don't think it's going to be for Carolina necessarily,
Yeah.
but keep an eye on Matt Campbell maybe for another job elsewhere. Maybe I don't even know which one, but it almost feels like he missed his opportunity because he was like a name for so long, and then just didn't take any jobs anywhere else, or didn't get jobs anywhere else. And now he's got Iowa State back to 10-2, and his name is once again like in the carousel. I'm not sure if he would. This would be, I think, an upgrade for him in terms of football commitment and that sort of thing. I know UNC's NIL situation is not as good as it could be, but I think they're trying to rectify it. So, yeah. I think there's more upside at UNC and Iowa State.
I think so too. I think we'll see what happens whenever the day comes that Matt Campbell leaves Iowa State, because I think it's easy at this point to kind of forget how bad Iowa State was for as long as they were, and how hard that job actually is, and how incredible it is that he's got them back to a 10-win season here. But I do want to bring up, I mean, I've seen and heard some talk about this North Carolina job, and a lot of people are making kind of similar points here, that the way that we want to talk about this North Carolina job is that it all looks really good on paper. But in actuality, when you start getting into the building and seeing the support that is or isn't there, and the NIL money, and the commitment to football versus basketball, and just the North Carolina fan base would know more than I would. Some of the insiders certainly would know a lot more than I would. I'm just kind of telling you some of the things that I've seen and heard. This job is not actually as good as it looks on the surface, is my understanding. And there's some things that need to be rectified there if the next coach is going to have any more success than Mac Brown did. I think the best way I can just describe my general sense of what's going on here is just messy. And the boosters, I mean, people were loyal to Mac Brown, and I mean, I get the sense that it almost doesn't matter who they hire. It's going to kind of be more the same of this middling, can't quite get over the top kind of program that we've seen from North Carolina since we've been doing this podcast, really, other than a year or two here or there.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I think they almost have to like swing for the fences. I don't buy the Belichick stuff. I don't know. I think that was almost like, I don't think Belichick really wants to coach college football.
No. Even if he thinks he does, I don't think he wants this. Like,
no. He's not going to want to recruit.
He's got a great defensive coordinator already in place. He could just step in and work with if he wanted to. But if he did, I would pay an ungodly amount of money for the HBO behind-the-scenes series of Bill Belichick and Jeff Collins and that defense.
It's so crazy. So crazy it just might work.
Stranger than fiction. Let's keep moving. Our producer's trying to go to bed. Couple other things here. We did get some news. Mike Norvell hires a new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. He hires Gus Malzahn, sitting head coach at UCF, coming in to be his offensive coordinator. Tony White, defensive coordinator at Nebraska, is going to be moving to Tallahassee to take on that job. I don't have a ton of thoughts on Tony White. I mean, I think he's a pretty good defensive coordinator. He's done a good job at Nebraska. They had defense was not the problem there. I forget where he was for. I'm going to look that up. But he has, I thought he was somewhere here in the ACC or on the East Coast somewhere. He was at Syracuse. Yeah, he was at Syracuse for 3 years under Dino Babers, and they had good defenses under him as well. So, like, I think that hire, good, no questions. You know, you're good there. My questions are the offensive coordinator hire of Gus Malzahn. And really, I kind of mentioned this on the the recap show, or maybe even the preview last week, this has a little bit of a sense of the Ryan Day hiring Chip Kelly thing to me. Not only in that you're hiring a sitting head coach as your offensive coordinator, but also like what Ryan Day wants to do and what Chip Kelly wants to do are pretty different approaches, I think, on offense. And so maybe they're just trying to find some synergies together. I think it's kind of the same thing with Mike Norvell and Gus Malzahn. Like Mike Norvell, I think, wants to have something of a downfield passing attack and a bit of a more modern offense, whereas Gus Malzahn wants to be able to run a defensive back out there as a quarterback and try to go win a national title, and he almost did, right? Like, so kind of a different approach here. And,
Nick
and
Marshall,
maybe it's
come on down.
Yeah, maybe it's a meeting of the minds here. I don't know.
I like the Malzahn hire a lot more than I like the Chip Kelly hire. Chip Kelly has been running like the first iteration of the spread offense for like 15 years. So the thing that made him good at Oregon is something that everybody is on like volume 6 of that offense now, and he's still running like volume 1, and that's why Ohio State lost to Michigan last weekend. I like the Malzahn hire a lot more. Pretty tough to recruit at UCF relative to what he was able to do at Auburn. I know UCF is in Orlando and there's a lot of talent in Florida. So but things started going downhill there, and he couldn't really hit on a quarterback. So they brought in KJ Jefferson, and it was a bit of a disaster. He couldn't stay healthy this year, and then when he was on the field, he couldn't really throw. So I mean, right up Malzahn's alley in terms of not really being able to throw. I just think I think this is a better situation for him. He's going to have a lot of talent. He's used to coaching these types of players at Auburn. I think that this is going to work out fine. Famous last words. But I like this hire. I like this hire better than the Chip Kelly one at Ohio State.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
We did have a comment on the YouTube, by the way.
Yeah.
I called this into question. Somebody said, like, well, he's part of the Malzahn coaching tree. It's like, Malzahn was the offensive coordinator at Tulsa when Norvell was a GA like 15 years ago. Like, that's part of the tree now. And supposedly it's a mentorship thing. I mean, I don't know, but like, I don't get this. I personally don't get this. And again, maybe I'm wrong. It's happened once or twice on this show before, but I wanted to call out too, and I'm trying to find the exact comment. Why is this not showing up here? We've had more than one Florida State fan on the comments, by the way, of, calling us out for trash talking Florida State and not sure why we hate Florida State so much on this show and that kind of thing.
They went 2-10. They're terrible. What do you want me to do? What am I supposed to say?
Well, and what did they do before doing that, Mike?
They went 13-0, and we talked about how they should have been in the college football playoff. Oh, and also
that?
they also, well, it was really after that, but they tried to exit the conference, force their way out. Drew Weatherford
They acted like they're better than everybody else.
Yeah, and then went 2-10. It's funny.
Yeah, your program is coming out in front of God and everyone saying we're too good for this conference. We're better than everyone else. We're worth more money. We're getting the hell out of here.
Yeah, they won one FBS game this year.
Have you ever known anyone in your life that comes out and says all that stuff and you're like, that's a really likable guy right there. I want to be friends with him.
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
Like.
Yep.
Read the room, man. That's why we've done this show. This is season 9. Up until season, 6 or 7, I've never had issues with Florida State. I'll call them for what they are, and they were good and they weren't good and, whatever. But your program kind of made it personal when you said, my program's better than everyone else here. Y'all can all go kick rocks. We're going to take Saudi money and get the hell out of here. That's what I have a problem with. That's why I don't like your team. And I think it's hilarious when you say you're better than everyone and then you go lose everything. That's hilarious.
Yeah, they played like a bad group of 5 team this year, which is why it's very funny. It's like, oh, well, you want to make the jump. You're better than everybody else. And then you won one FBS game this year. And you were tied. You were tied at the end of the first quarter with Charleston Southern as a 30-point favorite. It's funny. You went 2-10. It's funny. Sorry. It was funny.
Yeah.
Be better next year. I don't know.
You go out and talk your trash, and then you go put up a record like that. Yeah, we're going to make fun of you. It's objectively funny.
This is what we do. Also, like, we make fun of everybody here. So I don't.
Yeah.
Nobody's immune.
Speaking of making fun of teams, what's EVA doing?
Good question.
What are we, 24 hours past the signing deadline, and we still have the entire assistant coaching staff in place?
Devin, did you go to bed? You still with us? He was with us 6 minutes ago.
Yeah.
He asked us a question. How does Des Kitching survive? How does Tony Elliott survive? Well,
I saw that Tony Elliott made the comment, like, we're expecting all the staff to be back this year, which for Devin's sake, for the sake of Banana Slug and all the other UVA fans that we've got
Chris
with
Grondin.
us, I really hope that's the same thing as the Braves' Alex Anthopoulos saying we expect the whole coaching staff to be back, and then firing about half of them about a week later. Like, it's not unprecedented to say that and just not mean it. So maybe that's what's going on in Charlottesville.
It's this is funny. Multi-million-dollar donation today for UVA. Scott mentioned that to us before we hit record.
We won't mention anything else I said.
That's it. That's all I'm going to say about that. But maybe they can use some of that to find the buyout money. You know, maybe that's a good use of funds. Not just for the rev sharing stuff. Maybe just.
I mean, this discussion applies to both programs in Virginia, by the way. I feel like both of them are in a place where you can't really run the entire staff back another year. There has to be something that changes, right? For both of them.
And both programs were like, yeah, I mean, Pry said, oh, we'd love to have, I'd like to have everybody back. We have a lot of good people in this building, is what he said. Tony Elliott was like, yeah, I don't foresee any staff changes. This feels like a lot of coach speak. Just get through signing day and.
Right.
Doesn't that feel that way?
Was that yesterday, day before? I don't even remember. But yeah, like, and that's the way the college game works, right? Is get everybody in the boat and then change captains. Is kind of how this goes.
Yeah.
I don't know. We kind of hit on this too. One of the things I think we might be in line at, honestly, again, both of these programs potentially. I know there's been talk about, you know, what is Pry's runway at this point, or what does his leash look like? We talked about it somewhat with Virginia. It feels like these programs are both in a place, and I feel like there's one more that's slipping my mind, but like where if you're going to change football coaches, you're probably also going to be changing ADs, and you're just not at a point on the calendar where it makes good sense to change ADs. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's something that might happen more so in the spring, if not give it a few weeks in September and see how the football team's doing, and then fire everybody, hire an AD, hire a coach, basically the way that Georgia Tech did a couple of years ago with Jeff Collins and Todd Stansbury. Fire them both in September, get the AD in, let him hire a new coach, and go from there. But you're already into basketball season. You know, you're just not in a place to make those moves at this moment. So I wonder if that's the kind of thing we might be headed for, depending on how things go for again, both Virginia and Virginia Tech over the next 9 months or so.
I don't mean to be that was all good points, but we got a good show coming, so I don't mean to be totally disrespectful to Brent Pry, but Virginia Tech has their Mike London. You know, good recruiter, can't coach.
Tough but fair.
Yeah, that's comedy. That's what that is.
Mm-hmm. Devin Hamilton, I live 20 minutes from William and Mary, so I'm still dealing with Mike London. That's awesome. Awesome.
Virginia's awesome.
I will be very surprised if both of these programs run back the entire the entire on-field staff. Like, there have to be changes coming. Have to be.
I don't think either one has the same staff intact. I think it's going to be bigger changes at UVA and smaller changes at Virginia Tech. Gun to my head.
Technically, the signing period ends Friday, tomorrow. So maybe that's your deadline. Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah. Yep.
But that's all I got on news. Scott, looks like you had a couple things you wanted to hit on here.
Just wanted to shout out. We got our Spotify Wrapped as a podcast. So for those that listen only on audio and also on Spotify, we had a lot of growth on Spotify this year too. So thank you guys for listening. We were up 41% in total listeners, 54% in streams, which means if you actually watch a video podcast, 33% gain in total followers, which is just Spotify only. 48% of listeners, which is all listeners across all platforms, 48% discovered us this year. So that's almost half of all the listeners on audio. Our videos were watched 396% more than last year. The biggest thing on here I think was cool is that we are in the top 10% of all video podcasts on Spotify.
Yeah.
I don't think it's because we're awesome. I think it's because not a lot of podcasts or videos on Spotify yet. But hey,
that's the spirit. That's what I'm talking about.
Bring us back down to earth, baby.
We were a top 10 show for 207 people, and we were the number one show for 26 fans on Spotify. So
yeah, let's go.
Shout out to the listeners. If we're in your Spotify Wrap, tag us on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and it'd be cool to see. I know as the producer of the show, this was only my number 3 podcast. So those that are number 1, you're better than me.
This show and my other podcast, they weren't even in my top 5 podcasts on Spotify Wrapped. And I'm a host of both of them. So I don't listen back to a lot of our content.
Look at you guys listening to podcasts on Spotify. I'm proud of you. I wouldn't know what that's like. So anyways,
what do you do? What do you do? Apple?
I told
Are you on
myself
Apple?
No, I told myself I was going to get rid of Overcast when they updated the app and it was a total disaster 2 months ago. And I almost quit 4 times. And then I was like, this is too much of a pain in the ass to try to move to Pocket Casts or something like that. But yeah, still on Overcast.
I want to make a joke. I just simply cannot make. I'll text you guys it afterwards. I can't.
Fair enough. Put it in the private chat if you want to.
Yeah. Well, I'll do it right now.
All right. Mike, Scott, that's all I got. Anything else before we work on getting out of here?
I think we're good.
I said it was either going to be 45 minutes or an hour and 45 minutes, and we basically split the difference here. So feeling good about that.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here. Let's go watch the ACC Championship game. We will come back, recap it. We got a lot more we got to talk about in the meantime. We're going to be back, so come join us probably Saturday night, a few minutes after midnight. We'll talk about the game and talk about what comes ahead. Sunday, there'll be some bowl announcements. We got previews coming your way, lots more content. Keep it tuned here. We are on Twitter at FTRSJoey, at Mike McDaniel SI, at Severus_Snipes, at BC Podcast ACC. Find us on YouTube, youtube.com/at the ACC Football Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Appreciate the folks here in the chat with us tonight. It's been a lot of fun. Another really good crowd with us tonight. So appreciate the folks doing that. iTunes, Spotify, as mentioned, Amazon, Google, wherever you get your podcast in audio form, go find us there as well.
YouTube Music.
Do that. That one. Basketball Conference Podcast at gmail.com is the email address.
Nailed it.
Thank you. Mike, where else on the social medias?
Facebook.com/basketball conference rate review. Find some of our podcasts there. Shout out to everybody in the chat.
Mm-hmm. Love
Good
you guys.
stuff.
A lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Good stuff.
Mike, that's all I got. Anything else?
We'll be back to recap the game, talk about bowl destinations, talk about if SMU got snubbed.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be fun. Could be a fun podcast.
A lot of good stuff coming your way. Keep it tuned here. You want to watch some games, come back and recap them? Just the one?
It's one game.
Just one game.
Hey,
You want to
game.
go watch
Single
game, come back and recap it?
Go watch a game. Go spit game. I'm gonna be watching other games, but also this one.
I don't know how spitting game works. I'm too old for that.
Yeah, me too. We're both married. Well, all three of us. Yeah, thank you, Scott. Thank you. Perfect drop.
There it is. On that
It
note,
would be. I was gonna say one last thing. Dabo backing his way into the college football playoff would be something I wasn't sure he would back his way in anything. Yeah.
it's like a warm sweater. Just
Yes. He's something.
that went a different direction than I thought you were going to go. Never mind.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I'm not one to use the back door, I didn't think, but here we are.
on that note, for Mr. Mike McDaniel, for producer Scott, I'm Joey Weaver. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll talk to you again very, very soon. Enjoy the ACC Championship game. Until then, go Stangs, go Tigers, and go ACC.